Roxs is maybe the single most legendary pirate in all of One Piece, but what truly sets him apart from everyone else is, of course, his insane crew. Whitebeard, Kaido, this fish here. Now, of course, I mean Big Mom and freaking Shiki, but then also all of these guys right here. These dudes are all legends, but their stories and powers might reveal even more than Roxs himself does for the rest of the story. And so today I want to break them down with you together to uncover the true secrets of the One Piece world, and I have to get right into it and talk about the single, maybe craziest powerhouse of the Roxs crew, the strongest man in the world, Edward Whitebeard Newgate. And I gotta be honest, I love this dude. He's one of the single coolest characters in all of One Piece, one of the main reasons I got into the story so hard at some point, and with each and every chapter, still, he somehow gets more interesting to me even after being dead for more than half the story now. Now, originally, we just knew that he was one of the Yonko dominating the sea, helping Luffy at Marineford a little bit, but now we've learned that he was probably the right-hand man of the Roxs pirates, the vice captain, and he very likely very well knew that Blackbeard was even Roxs' son, and obviously he knew what the One Piece was and was very confident that Teach could never claim it. So Big Papa here, I guess, didn't believe in one of his sons, it seems, and I guess who can blame him for that? Look at Blackbeard. But Whitebeard's power was already immeasurable thanks to his crazy Quake fruit, but now his significance in the story is even greater somehow. We already knew most of his past, obviously. His home is located near Sphinx Island, he was a pirate, but now we see that he was won in a Davy backfight by Roxs, which is crazy. And it also raises an incredible question of just how big their power gap truly was. I mean, I always figured it was fairly large, but maybe it was actually closer than I imagined. Then again, seeing as Whitebeard couldn't solo Roger and Roxs could only be beaten up by Roger and Garp teaming up, I kind of feel very confident saying that Roxs is still probably on a whole different level of power, something we maybe haven't seen yet in One Piece altogether. Which is really saying something because Eddie over here can level entire islands and shatter the seas with a single fist bump. God, I mean, the dude is just really cool. Maybe gotta get one of those really crazy Whitebeard figurines. Anyways, it makes you wonder, what was he really scheming up while he was alive afterwards, right? Like, after God Valley, he then formed his true family, mentoring his rivals kids as Ace and Teach, and of course, ultimately lost his life at Marineford, kind of again involving both of these rival kids. But what was he truly up to as a Yonko, right? Was he stalling for the arrival of Joy Boy? Like, what did he learn about the D-Clan from Roger? And how much did he actually know before Roger and he split their stake? Because I gotta be honest with you, I am so curious if Whitebeard was actually one of the most informed people on the entire ocean and somehow he just managed to keep all of that just to himself. I mean, we do know that he spent a lot of time on Elbaf before the Roxs crew was officially formed, since we see in chapter 1155 that Roxs did have a gang before he then had his crew. And this kind of makes you wonder if he learned anything from the Harley or the mural. Like, Whitebeard was there for a while to explore it all. And I don't know, lately I've even had this thought that Whitebeard may have even simply positioned himself as a Yonko in order to prevent the wrong people, like, I don't know, Shiki, Kaido, Big Mom, from initiating the final war before it was time. That's at least until he saw Luffy at Marineford, and I just love the idea that he was playing peacekeeper until the real Joy Boy appeared, the person Roger was really waiting for. And this would actually make a lot of sense because we do know that one of the Roxs Pirates' other founding members did not take this approach, and it could have forced Whitebeard's defensive hand to begin with. I'm talking about our next crew member, Shiki the Yakuza. What? The man who would one day rise to the infamous title of Golden Lion and one of Roger's other rivals. And I gotta say, I absolutely love that title. I do know that Oda loves to drop some cold names like the Surgeon of Death or the Heavenly Demon, all good and stuff, but I do think that Golden Lion Shiki kind of rips, if you get my like. I want to be the Golden Lion Shiki. It's the kind of epic title saved for an epic hero like Aslan or Escanor, you know, if you watch any other anime. And Shiki has actually always intrigued me from the beginning because he's one of the very few characters from the One Piece movies that has actually been brought into the canon story. Really, the only other example I can think of is maybe Uta, Shanks' adopted daughter, but even with her, it's kind of a little bit. And I mean, Oda writes some crazy good villains in some of these these movies, what can I say? But unlike Uta, who just sort of got weaved a little bit into One Piece in a panel in chapter 1055, mostly, let's be real, for promotional purposes, Big Dog Shiki got an entire bonus chapter dedicated to his story. By the way, a bonus chapter that made Garp and Sengoku all look way cooler. We got a bunch of Roger stuff. It is a really good chapter. And let's just say, this man is disgustingly broken. In chapter 0, conveniently titled also Strong World, as that is Shiki's movie, we do see the true might of the Golden Lion. He single-handedly is the first person to escape from Impel Down after cutting his own legs off. And he levels half of Marineford in his battle with Sengoku and Garp, and then mysteriously disappears after trying to recruit Whitebeard. So first off, Jesus, I'm kind of starting to understand the Battle of Edwar more now, because this dude is a menace. No wonder he was considered another rival of Roger himself, but also I kind of love this chapter looking back at it, because we do see just a little bit more of Shiki's relationships, which to me really shows the nature of the Roxs crew altogether. After flexing his incredible power, he goes and tries to get Whitebeard to join him. He respected his old crewmates, something we don't see in these flashbacks to Roxs and his crew, and somehow, despite power being their core concept, as we see over and over again, some of these mighty pirate icons did sometimes very much grow fond of each other. And we will see more of that in this video. And it kind of just leaves me wondering when Shiki will truly make his return in the real actual storyline, as he does very much seem to be alive and well, scheming something somewhere. Now, Strong World, the movie, is not canon, but the manga chapter very much is, and that leaves the potential for this Yakuza boss to return in the final saga. And it would make a lot of sense that Shiki would appear very soon now that the Roxs storyline has been properly kicked off for real this time, and I think we're just gonna keep getting more of it in the future in other flashbacks, it seems. So could Shiki be the man marked by flames, or a potential massive power boost for, I don't know, Cross Guild? I have talked about both of these ideas before, and I'm just very excited to see if either of them pan out to be true, or if it's gonna be something completely different, because one way or another, I think we can both agree, I really want this dude to come back and be an actual part of the manga. But not just him. I'd also really love to see any of the living Roxs pirates return as key players in the final war, because, well, they just seem to know way more about the Void Century and the inner workings of the One Piece world than I previously ever expected. And maybe there's even a chance that some characters we don't have a lot of info on quite yet will make an appearance to help some of the various factions right now competing for, I guess, power, the end game, whatever you want to call it. So, for example, let's take this guy next. The Kingpin, big mafioso boy, Don Marlon. This strapping man appeared for the first time in chapter 1155, and I gotta be real, I kind of dig this dude. Particularly because he's very clearly named after Marlon Brando, who played Don Corleone in The Godfather, but mostly because he's just a straight mafia boss. Like, that's cool. I kind of love the idea that Roxs went around the ocean, Davy backfighting as many scoundrels as he could, like Yakuza, Mafia, Pirate, you name it. Roxs fought them and tried to get, I guess, the boss or the strongest guy he could get. And I do know I'm not the first person to point out that the Don here could be Capone Bage's dad, right? I think that's been pretty obvious when the chapter dropped. It does just make sense. They have the same vibe going on, and they're both from the West Blue, by the way, so figure. And it would also make a ton of sense if Don Marlon's name was actually just Marlon. Yeah, by the way, just like the clownfish from Finding Nemo, but seriously, it would kind of line up because the title Don is a rank of power in a mafia hierarchy, and even Bage was a former Don for the mafia himself. So that just being another direct tie between Bage and his potential Roxs pirate father. Also, I just think it would be really cute somehow that two of the Roxs pirates' kids got married. Like, I don't know, I love a little bit of a crew romance myself. We could get some more of that in the Straw Hats too, maybe someday. I'd be down for it. And I kind of wonder, you know, how that would have panned out if Big Mom had survived the Wano arc. Well, she may very well have, knowing Oda, but I'm a little bit doubtful at this point. Maybe she's actually dead. Speaking of a little crew romance, it does seem like the Roxs pirates did very much have at least one. You know, the one between Edward Third Leg Newgate and Miss Buckingham Stussy here. And I can't be the only one that was a little bit surprised to see that Stussy was one of the founding members of the Roxs Pirates, right? Like, I know she joined the crew, we kind of knew that for a while, but I didn't expect her to be ahead of someone like, I don't know, Big Mom, who very iconically was paragraphed to be one of the Roxs Pirates too. But then the more I thought about it, it kind kind of makes sense. She's one of the single smartest people in the One Piece world, which got revealed when we found out that she was another founding member of MATS, you know, the expert science group featuring the likes of Vegapunk, Judge, Caesar, or at least that's what I would say if she was actually one of the smartest. Like, I don't know how I forgot this, or I guess it maybe just never really clocked, but Stussy's intro box straight up calls her a freeloader. She didn't really contribute anything really to MATS apparently, except for the fact that she got cloned, and her clone is just like vastly superior in every way, shape, and form to her. And no, this is not up for debate. Hot Bad Stussy is definitely way better than regular old Stussy. So actually am instead left wondering what exactly she contributed to the Roxs crew to begin with, and I'm kind of starting to think it was quite literally just her looks. She's known as a science robber by trade, and I do think that means that she played a very similar role probably to Nami, a burglar who uses seduction and finesse to get the only thing that really mattered to her, cold, hard cash, though I guess in this case through the sale and misuse of science inventions that she robbed from other scientists. And well, I guess also into Whitebeard's pants apparently. I mean, she insists that Weevil, her son, is also Whitebeard's kid, but I still can't shake the feeling that he may just be a clone that she used to try and leverage Whitebeard's fortune into her hands. I don't know, jury is still out, which is really sad because while writing this, I went back and reread a lot of her and Weevil's chapters, and they actually just kind of made me tear up a little bit in retrospect. Like, when I first read them, they did not hit this hard, but the poor dude is just lost and manipulated by his mother. He just wants to avenge the dad that he never even knew and isn't even allowed to do that. Like, what a cursed existence, which really makes me wonder what will happen when they inevitably make their appearances after Marco somehow saves Weevil from Impel Down. Now, unfortunately, not all the Roxas pirates have the same potential, I think. Some are already dead and gone, as is the case, for example, for Ochoku, or if you prefer his translated name, Wang Ji. I think Ochoku's pretty cool, but hey. Let's address the elephant in the room right away. I am like 90% certain that this dude must be Caribou's father. It would explain so much about him, his desire to join Blackbeard, and why he's low-key oddly important in the series somehow for no reason. If Caribou is the son of the former Commodore of Hachinosu, I can see why he'd end up so relevant despite looking like that and having the thing that I guess it's a personality. I don't know. As I mentioned, Ochoku ended up taking over Pirate Island after Roxs was defeated at God Valley, and we do know that because it was confirmed that Blackbeard took over Hachinosu during the Rocky Port incident from Ochoku, which by the way is low-key the coolest side moment in the series we never saw, and I wish we got to see it in a chapter or maybe even animated. I don't know. Like, can we agree that this would be a really cool movie to see? It's the moment that Law took 100 pirate hearts to become a warlord, and when Kobe, Blackbeard, and Law formed an alliance to accomplish all their mutual goals somehow, which is insane. It's just one of those legendary off-screen moments in the series, like the battle on Punk Hazard between Akainu and Aokiji, that I just love to imagine over and over and try to unravel in my head whenever it gets brought up, really hoping one day that we're gonna see it. Regardless though, we do know this was the battle where Ochoku was actually killed. And when you really consider how powerful Blackbeard's crew was getting during the time skip, I do think it's actually kind of insane how strong this guy must have actually been. He's known as the Pirate Guru, but we might as well call him the Pirate Tank, because seriously, this is no easy feat. He earned the status as a Roxs pirate, and I'm just kind of confused how he wasn't revered as one of the Yonko, considering that he ruled over Hachinosu and was a former Roxs pirate. Like, maybe he just barely didn't make it in like Shiki. But while Ochoku is definitely the most prominent dead, or at least defeated, because we don't know if Blackbeard fully killed the guy yet, there are some very much confirmed dead pirates on Roxas' crew that we did see during Thriller Bark. A bunch of them actually. And since they're only bits and pieces we know about them, I'm gonna hit you with a nice little fun fact speed run. You know, I wonder if I could enter this into the GDQ. 3, 2, 1, go. Ganzui. We learned that that this bulky armored man from Thriller Bark was Ganzui, the pirate smuggler, and an original member of the crew before they even were a pirate crew. This dude is gigantic, even by Oda's weirdly proportioned standards, you know what I mean? And during Thriller Bark, he seemed to be combined with like a giant rhino's legs or another weird beast, something like that. If I had to guess, he's probably from Kano country, the Chinese counterpart to Wano country. Very creative, Oda, great naming scheme. Next up, Silver Axe. He was mentioned one time during chapter 957. Now, my guess is that he was silver and used an axe, like this dude next to Gonzo in Thriller Bark. After him, we've got Claw Guy. Great name, his official name. He's the guy who has these cool Wolverine X Baraka from Mortal Kombat blades on his hands, and we do see him jumping in the back of the Roxs Pirates from chapter 1096, and again on Thriller Bark right here. And the same does go for this fishman. I do like to call him Big Chubs because he's big and he's a bit chubby, and if I had to gamble as a gambling man, I'd say that this white and round armored dude here on Thriller Bark is, here on the left, is probably Big Chubs. But let's be clear, not all of these dead men walking are complete throwaways either, because there are two pirates who could have been background characters, but they did manage to swing some big pirate infamy. One of whom is low-key like one of the best pirates in One Piece, if I got to be honest, and that man is none other than my bro, Captain John. Come on, he's just kind of rad, isn't he? Is that just me? I mean, I just love his design. It's solid, it's piratey. Whenever I see him, I just kind of feel like he's a real pirate in the series, like on the max meter, and he's known for having a big golden treasure somewhere that Buggy desperately wants to find. And other than that, I guess, I mean, you see, he's a boozer, he loves a good drink, which I can respect, Zoro can too. He's cool, I like him. In a world full of giant pirates with crazy weapons like Kaido and Whitebeard, or weird rubbery dudes like Luffy, Captain John pleasantly stands out as like a bona fide, tried and true pirate character. You know, like a swashbuckler who embodies everything Oda tends to avoid in a series about, well, you know, pirates. I'd actually love to see a one-shot for Captain John, because I kind of feel like he could just be a super grounded, self-contained character that gets crazy respect if his story was properly flashed out. I don't know, maybe we'll get a some like a flashback for him. That would be fun with Buggy. But actually, since I mentioned one-shots, can we quickly talk about the other pirate from the Roxs crew who had a little bit more substance than I ever expected, which is the four-armed gunslinger Gil Bastard. Now, Gil is actually one of my new favorites in the series on lore base alone, and that's because just like Ryuma here, you know who I mean, he's actually a character from Oda's past that was then later woven into One Piece. He was seen with the Roxs crew during chapter 1096 here, and then during Thriller Bark here, and was actually confirmed to be the Gil Bastard in the SBS of the latest volume 112, where a very observant Japanese fan noticed that, you know, these might be the same character. And in the volume, Oda gives us a little bit of a backstory. And long story short, Gil Bastard here is actually from a one-shot manga that Oda once created in high school, yep, and it's called Wanted, and bro, it's so fun. I kind of love when Oda gets his chance to expand the lore of One Piece with his other one-shots that he did, and it kind of makes me wonder how many other characters were initially planned to be their own protagonists and then just later got put somewhere in on the Grand Line instead. I really enjoyed it when monsters got animated, and maybe, just maybe, we'll see the same thing for Wanted, and maybe we'll get a way better feeling for this character. So, we've now covered a bunch of the most powerful crew in One Piece so far, but we're gonna really shift into some of the really important crew members for the next ones. You know, characters who already were massive in terms of their positions in the story, but also the more and more I look at them under the new lens of, you know, being Roxs pirates, things are way different than I ever realized. Especially after seeing Roxs himself, what he's done, and what he knew, the actions of these several crew members, and, you know, in what context we got to meet them in the story, makes me really question all the subtext that Oda was playing with way back in the day. Starting with one of the baddest of baddies on the Roxs crew, Charlotte Lynland. And baddie is really a double meaning here, because obviously she was one of the four Yonko who dominated the sea after the era of Roxs and Roger, but also Yonka Lynland seems kind of fine, let's be real. She really let herself go after kid number, I don't know, 25 or so, which don't do that to your body. Why do that? And I mean, I don't need to dwell here for too long. You kind of know the deal. Powerful Conqueror's Haki user, insane devil fruit that lets her possess objects and infuse them with souls, creating brutal homies animating inanimate objects. She cannibalized her foster mother, that classic Big Mom wave. But what I wasn't prepared for was the idea that her family may have been her attempt at becoming Joy Girl. No, sorry, not that Joy Girl. Shout out to Sophie though. She rules and her theories have been top tier lately. You know, should check out her channel. Anyway, look at the mural on the left here and it'll make a lot more sense, I think. See how this army is made of various races waging war against a giant dark devil creature? Well, isn't it coincidental that Joy Boy is the one that seemed to be leading them? Well, I mean, not really, it's his army after all. What I do mean is that it seems that Big Mom was trying to create a crew to match this type of army. A crew full of various races yearning to partner with the giants, all led by a godlike figure. So, kinda sounds like the Second World to me at least. Speaking of which, somewhere in this army was Stroyson, you know, the guy who can turn objects into food, and it's kind of a throwaway part of the series in Whole Cake Island, but it's now been confirmed that he was a Roxs pirate apparently too, which I love. It's really crazy when you think about it, but technically, he also deserves a spot in this video, as apparently he may well have been the chef for the greatest pirate crew to ever sail the Grand Line. Love it. Little details and little facts like this, which I just love so much about One Piece. Anyways, back to Big Mom. We do know that she had a road poneglyph, meaning that, you know, she knew that it would help her find Laugh Tale eventually. We also know that Big Mom was ready to initiate the final war alongside Kaido. We'll get to him after they made their alliance on Wano. But the question I think no one really properly asked or answered was, why? Well, she was on the Roxs Pirates, right? Like, the crew spent their time in Elbaf, and while she herself may not have gone to Elbaf due to her, you know, rocky past there, she may have ended up learning a lot of the true history from her captain. You know, if Roxs explained his plan to his crew, or even just some of it, it would explain her goal of creating an army of all the different races, and it would explain her desire to have the poneglyphs, it would explain her trying to start the final war, trying to connect with the giants, why that would be so important, and she may have very well known the story of Joy Boy and was positioning herself to be in that spot. Let's not forget that Loki was supposed to marry one of her daughters and marry into the Charlotte family. Now, as I mentioned at the top of this video, this could actually be why Whitebeard doesn't act during the series. His goal may straight up have just been to stiff-arm Big Mom because he knew more from Roger than the rest of the Roxs Pirates did about the Void Century and Laugh Tale. I mean, God, I just can't get over the idea that these Yonko had some weird power dynamic going on behind the scenes that Oda just totally hid in plain sight and we're only now, you know, slowly learning about. So fun. Or there's another idea for Big Mom. If not herself, she may have been trying to position someone else to be Joy Boy, like one of her children. You know, she tried to make a lot of them. Or maybe another member of the Roxs crew, potentially her younger crew member that she kind of cared for, Kaido. And this beast is someone I have been wanting to talk more and more about ever since we got the Roxs design and lore revealed in chapter 1154 and 1055. I mean, for years I've been talking about how Kaido may have been trying to become the next Joy Boy and how all his actions during Wano and leading up to it would be insanely well explained by this fact. His character has been somehow getting more and more relevant and interesting to me since Wano ended, ironically, but okay, let's get into it. It's never explicitly been stated that he wanted to be Joy Boy 2, Thunder Bagua Boogaloo, but I do think that it's heavily implied with his disappointment in everyone and his desire to be defeated by the next person who would become the real next Joy Boy. Kaido always struck me as a man who tried, failed, and then just settled for destruction and alcoholism instead, but I think now I may have had it all wrong. Like, let's look at this. Kaido was at God Valley. He was trained by Whitebeard and Big Mom and idealized the power of Roxs. He revered his captain as one of the strongest to ever do it, which makes a lot of sense when we saw that Roxs absolutely waltzes his way into the room of flowers casually and then stares down Imu with a gun? How badass, like insane. But this one situation made me question a ton about Kaido and his knowledge in the series. A lot of his moves, his actions, and his choices, they all kind of hinted at a greater knowledge than most other characters in the show ever had. Like, let's not forget he knew about the Lunarians and their tie to Joy Boy. Well, I mean, for sure about the Lunarian thing, we aren't 100% confirmed on his lines about being the one that King was waiting for, being him, being the next Joy Boy, or if it was just someone who would free him, but let's operate on the idea that Kaido thought that he could become the next Joy Boy, right? For one, it would explain the gigantification experiments that he and Big Mom, by the way, were both working on with Caesar. More and more, we're getting ties between the ancient giants and regular giants to the Sun God and Joy Boy, Giant Luffy during Wano, the Galela, Elbaf worshipping Nika, and the mural and the Hurley, of course. And so Kaido forming an army of numbers seems to point towards the giants playing a massive part in the final war, specifically ancient giant blood, right? And you know who else pointed it out, by the way? Imu! Gunko quite literally said that the giants are a massive part of winning the final war in Imu's eyes, and so Kaido and Big Mom gunning for an army of giants themselves just adds to the idea that they knew way more than they ever let on. But what really struck me was the whole final war thing. I mean, Kaido literally having an attack called Conqueror of the Three Worlds Ragnarok, and the Elbaf arc then revealing the three worlds of One Piece history and the idea that the world will end and be reborn the same way Ragnarok is the end and rebirth of the universe in Norse mythology, and that obviously all being connected to the ancient giants and Loki. It's too much. Oda wrote Kaido this way for a reason, I think, and it's to hint at all of the things that Luffy will become and all of the things that I think Roxs wanted to become. You know, throughout the series, the Roxs pirates all allude to the idea of disappointment and betrayal among their crew. And I kind of wonder if, as a result of whatever happened on God Valley, Kaido realized that Roxs was not the next Joy Boy and that maybe he tried to become what his captain couldn't be? Like, wouldn't that be something else, right? So, is that it? Were those all the Roxs pirates, and can I finally get to the big boy himself? No, not quite yet. There is another member of the Roxs crew that I still need to cover, and sorry for the fake out, but I gotta keep you on your toes a little bit too. It's a long video, I don't want you to fall asleep unless you're actually watching this to fall asleep, in which case, hope you're already asleep. Alright, next up we have a character that I initially thought would be a fairly quick segment, you know, just quickly mention them, but I very quickly realized that they might be way more important than maybe even the likes of Big Mom and Kaido. Someone who is alive and could reveal a ton about Rox's true motives, the former Empress of Amazon Lily, Gloriosa. In case you forgot, she's the former leader of the Kuja tribe on Amazon Lily, and we do see her in granny mode while Luffy is there in the main story. In other words, yeah, if you didn't realize, this beautiful woman during the Roxs raid of God Valley is this Elder Nyan, the woman that mentors Boa Hancock, a former Roxs pirate. Now, Gloriosa is 2 generations back, the predecessor of Shiki, the woman who now runs the bar and, yeah, gets it on with my boy Rayleigh. Rayleigh, by the way, being my favorite character, just followed very closely by Scopper Gaban. And the reason that I say that she might be even more important than Big Mom and Kaido is kind of twofold. For one, she could be someone very important's mother in the story, and she could very well teach us about Rox's true motives through his son, Blackbeard. Let's start with the mom idea here. If you know me, you do know that I love mothers, and I do love One Piece, which means I love talking about moms in One Piece and speculating who might be whose mom. One might even say that I am world-renowned for saying everyone and anyone could be Luffy's mom, because, well, they could be, but the 2 people I don't talk about are Buggy and Blackbeard's moms. Now, on the non-speculation side, we do know that Blackbeard is Rox's kid, confirmed by Oda, and we do know that he was 2 years old during God Valley. That means that Roxs did the dirty deed before he raided God Valley, and so Blackbeard's mom is somewhere out there. So why do I think it might be Gloriosa? And well, quite frankly, it's because the series kind of points towards this in a lot of ways. I mean, not a crazy amount, but enough that it makes me wonder if Oda was actually hinting at it. You see, all of the empresses of Amazon Lily seem to end up folding on their ethics and morals and getting, with some men in the end. They're supposed to hate them, but they all seem to get with the bad boys. Boa Hancock, obsessed with Luffy. Shaki, she's with my man, Rayleigh. And even the missing link, Empress Tritoma, the one between Boa and Shaki, specifically died of the fearsome love sickness. Luffy's mom? But there is one way that the Empress can dodge this love sickness, and it's by following their lovers. Empress Gloriosa managed to pull this off, being exiled in the process, and right around this time, she would have been with the Roxs Pirates. And to me, all of this points to a member of the Roxs Pirates logically then being Gloriosa's lover. So I do think there is a really high chance that Roxs is who Gloriosa was chasing after, given that, Boa likes Luffy, Captain Love. Also, Roxs was powerful, inspiring, and all around a pretty big badass, and with the timeline lining up so well, I just think that there is a lot of potential for Gloriosa, out of all people, to maybe be Blackbeard's mother, which would help explain why he rushed down Amazon Lily after the time skip, and I've always kind of thought it was a little bit weird that he targeted Boa, even if her fruit is really amazing. It's kind of an odd play without any good explanation in my book. Her power is awesome, but I don't know, it just kind of seems super random, no? But this could be a subtle way for Oda to connect Blackbeard, to Amazon Lily, due to his mom being the former empress. I don't know, he could even want to take Boa as his own in a sick and twisted way to replicate what his dad did, which was have the pirate empress as his lover. And everything I just said also applies to Buggy, assuming that Buggy ends up being Rox's kid too, which, let's be real, the wanted poster from 1155 and the face matchup from 1154 do seem to really strongly suggest, right? Also, I love Roxy Buggy's theory, way too much to not mention it. I really hope that that one pans out. The mom idea would also really help us learn about Rox's goals, because Boa and Luffy are obviously bound to reconnect before the story ends, but there's also a really good chance that Boa may fall in with Cross Guild thanks to Rayleigh and Buggy's connection as former crewmates. And if that were to be the case, Gloriosa could reveal to either Luffy or Buggy some of the true motives behind Rox's real goals. Why he really wanted Hachinosu, how he planned to defeat Imu and the world government, etc, etc, etc. But now, with his potential wife he talked about, we can finally talk about Roxs himself. And I can describe him with one simple phrase: this man is a real unit. I mean, he's strong enough to single-handedly invade Marijoa and be the first person to storm into the flower room and just be like, I'm here by the way. He threatens Imu like it's nobody's business, like she's some town girl or something, and then he waddles his way over to Elbaf, cuts a mountain in half while walking past it. Now the jury is still out on if that was a devil fruit or raw hockey or swordsmanship, and then went on to form the craziest crew of absolute powerhouses the world has ever seen. As you know, we've been talking about this entire video. Now what I also find really interesting is that he took over Hachinosu because it was on top of a massive gold mine. I kind of wonder how all of that played into his plan. Like, clearly it required him to form this incredibly impressive and powerfully built crew, and then Ochoku felt it was important enough to lock it down and protect it, but why did he do that? And maybe more importantly, how and why did the crew disband? Did Roxs even die? I mean, probably, maybe, but there's a tons of ways that he could have just stayed alive after God Valley. Frozen and impaled down, maybe, like we see right here. Shifting his consciousness or soul into Teach with the powerful devil fruit, like maybe the Ope Ope no Mi, or even just leaving and becoming the man marked by flames? I don't know. He clearly knew way more than he let on, and spending time on Elbaf means that he is fairly likely to know about the three worlds and the history of One Piece. So did he pass all of this wisdom on to the likes of Whitebeard, Kaido, and Big Mom? I think that it's fairly likely. I also think it's important to remember that this man wanted to claim the world itself. His eyes weren't just set on trivial things like islands and defeating other pirates. He planned to take it all for himself. And I don't know how else to put it. This man is raw power incarnate. The enemy of Roger, who could only be taken down by the combined might of Garp and Roger. His power is unexplainable still, but what's even tougher to pin down is how he even knew about Emu and the Void Sentry and all of these things. How did he know? Is he from Laugh-Tale? Was he a follower of Joy Boy? Well, sort of. Maybe he is, because while we don't yet know how he knows what he knows, we can be very certain it ties into his worship of Davy Jones. And we know this because he straight up says that and then forms his crew through Davy backfights, clearly named by the way after the Davy Jones figure. But who even is Davy Jones? Is he the dark god of the abyss that Emu channels the power through, or is Davy the secret name of Joy Boy we've been waiting on? If you want some answers, you can check out this video right here where I break it all down for you and how this could all be tied to Rox's true plan. Otherwise, thanks so much for watching. Thanks to our wonderful and lovely Patreons. I forgot to talk about Patreon in this video. Lucky you, but now I will. Go check out Patreon if you want to help the channel and get some cool rewards, and I will see you in the next video. Maybe this one, hopefully.